second part.
Here you guys
Is it
go.
sometimes okay to tell a lie? Is it sometimes okay to kill a man? Those are all questions that we can disagree about, but certainly there's one thing that we can agree upon, and that's the fact that suffering is bad and pleasure is good. So maybe the right actions in life should be the ones that lead to more of the good stuff and less of that bad stuff. If that sounds like a good philosophy for you, then welcome to Utilitarianism. We want the maximal good for the maximal amount of people. Yes, everybody, because we're not just egoistic scum, are we? Wait a minute, do you see that out of control trolley that is barreling down these 5 innocent people? Hello everyone, we are tied to the track and a out of control trolley is barreling towards us and it's gonna rip us apart and we're all gonna die. But what you can do is pull a lever there and redirect it towards the other track. Hey, wait a minute, but on that other track I'm being tied. So maybe if you do that, you are directly responsible for my death. So I wouldn't do that if I were you. Please don't do that, man. That's a bit fucked up. Yes, that person will be dead because of us, but we have saved 5 people. We have, it was for the greater good. Don't you worry, my bros, I got you. Years ago, I have created a Facebook page that goes by the name of Trolley Memes, where to this day I share a utilitarianist propaganda. So hop on board if that's what you're into. Oh, what is that? You want to maximize good? Maybe you can do that by becoming a doctor and save lives. That is certainly a very good idea. I'm going to be a doctor now and I will save lives. I will save a lot of lives and I will make it my life's purpose to save as much lives as I can. Oh no, only 1 week into being a doctor, I have 5 dying patients, each having a malfunctioning organ. What should I do? I don't have organ donors that could provide all of the organs so I could save their lives. Hello, I am a completely healthy traveler who have come to this remote hospital to show you that I have a splinter that I wanted to get checked out. Hello, innocent, healthy traveler. I have heard that you have a splinter and also healthy organs. Have you considered donating your healthy organs for other people so that they may continue their lives? Not really. I don't really need your consent. I was just asking for fun. I'm not gonna lie, I have never felt quite as alive as right now. Wow, look at all those healthy organs. Hey, my patients, live and enjoy life. I have gave you organs so you can continue your lives. Wow, I am alive. My organs there where they have to be. I'm gonna be an utilitarian as well from now on and do the maximal amount for the maximal amount of people. It's so nice to see people live. But that's not enough. That's not enough. There's so many people in this earth that have so little. And so many people that have so much that they refuse to give it away because they are capitalistic swine and they pollute the earth with their yachts and fucking private jets while people are literally dying on the streets. It's time, my brothers, for a revolt, for a violent revolution that will turn this tide of capitalism on its head. Oh, right. I'm sorry. What I meant to say is that we should look into charities and see which ones are the most effective at saving lives so we can donate to those and, save lives. It's a very easy way to save lives. So maybe I should find a job that is more profitable than being a doctor and I should just donate all the money to the charities and I can just save hundreds of lives like that. Oh my god. Oh god, as a middle class first world citizen, I have the unique opportunity to save hundreds of lives with just a little bit of my pay. I should be saving lives. I should be saving lives. Hello everyone, it's Ethical Egoist here, and I just wanted to show off my new Mercedes. Yeah, I am aware of the fact that with this money I could literally save hundreds of lives in Africa and other malaria-infested countries, but I mean, am I gonna? I mean, look at that car, man. I'm just gonna drive it real fast, and I'm gonna make it like a drifty, and I'm gonna just feel great about myself and about existence while I will ride my
Cars
Mercedes, and
are
like people will
important,
gonna
man.
look at my car, and I will be just like, oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah, baby. Hard work and intelligence does pay off. So.
I promise we wouldn't watch the whole video. But my God, if it's not amazing and really like doesn't it drive you to like want to think about what you could do and all the things you could do that could have problems and consequences? It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, utilitarianism, that's a meme one. That's a spicy philosophy.
Spicy philosophy. So, Aljoša, welcome back.
Like
Aljosha's back here, and he's been making some videos. I hope you guys have time. Check the link to finish that utilitarian ethics one. It's actually pretty funny, and he just gets better and better quality. I think you'll enjoy it even more. But good dude. So how you been? What's up?
Yeah, like I've been looking a bit over the trolley problem memes where we basically memed utilitarianism for 4 years. So I was like, yeah, I mean, it's about time to make it into a video, I guess. So here it is. And I don't know, like if the 4 years of, I mean, what people came up with, like all the trolley problems, all the criticisms, all the crazy, man. That's some spicy shit. Some really spicy shit.
You got 99 masochistic proletariats tied on one side, and on the other side you have Nathaniel Rothschild, who's a fetishist sadist who enjoys watching the not just suffering but the economic disheartenedship of these people. And then there's a train that works because Pol Pot and Mao haven't torn it down. So where do you start? What do we even do with this trolley problem?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, depends on what we want to do, I guess. Like if we're like totally utilitarian, it's just about the pleasure and minimizing suffering. I mean, then you're gonna have a problem with utility monsters, right? The kind of creatures that enjoy things much more than other creatures are capable of suffering, right? So if there's a utility monster,
what if you've got 4 people tied to a train wearing a VR helmet and they're having a really good time? So as they die, they have the best time of their life. They have the full 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Like more fun than they've ever had in their whole life. You take people that are miserable, and then this is 15 minutes of like, life shattering, like realization. You give them all acid and then like, PlayStation helmets. Does that make it okay? Does that make it okay?
I mean, should be a bit more okay, right? As the experience machine. I mean, it depends on what standards we have. That's one problem with utilitarianism, right? If it's gonna be just about pleasure, well, why not put rats on coke, right, or heroin or whatever?
Yeah, right. Here, let me for people who haven't been paying that much attention to utilitarianism, and I'm, I feel you. I mean, it happens. You get busy, but like this is one of the old designs. I think one of the more interesting plans for a Panopticon. There's been a number of them actually built now, but in the 1800s, before utilitarianism, last time we talked a bit about, was it Graham or who's the guy you like the most after Bentham? I like Bentham sometimes, but
I mean, I think it was Bentham who designed that, right?
Right, and it's
Mill.
It's not Mill, right? Mill's who we talked about, right? So Mill's very important because he actually kind of posited in a weird way, a more I wouldn't say positive, but productive, almost less entropic utilitarianism, which is actually kind of it can still be used for good and evil, but at the same time. The question about evil becomes confusing when you're talking about, well, you have all of these people that are treated equally. And, right now in Holland, I think it was like Holland converts prison to refugee living quarters. There you go. So Netherlands is they have less people that go into prison because the entire place is a prison state. And so what they've set up is now the former prison has been turned into a living quarter for.
This is an actual Panopticon. It looks round.
Yeah, it's
Whoa.
a total, yeah. And so here's an example of people living in a Panopticon who, and you have to understand, like, the way a Panopticon works is you assume you're being watched. We'll go back to the picture again. You assume you're being watched at all times. There's windows everywhere. There are, where was the camera picture we just saw? There are cameras everywhere. But also in the original version, it's just one wall is like a two-way mirror. So they can see in, but you can't see out. And eventually you start to assume you're being watched at all times. And when you assume you're watched at all times, you behave a certain way because, you know, let's say there's a blind man in front of you, you might rob him. That's kind of what that's kind of the legalism of this idea. But theoretically, they can't see everyone at once, but you just believe they can.
Yeah, like I think that the original model was just without those mirrors, even just a god being there, but being the whole place being so big that you can't really discern where the guard is looking at, so you never really know if its gaze is upon you or if you're just imagining you, and you just keep guessing because he's too far away and you're not sure, but then you're just driven mad by this skepticism until you just start believing that I could be watched at any moment, better not do anything. Yeah, that's basically how surveillance cameras work, right?
Yeah. Also, there's a theory that's kind of in the same approach by John Nash, and he had created an endgame theory. His concept was this idea that if you have two criminals that have robbed somewhere and they both can't trust the other criminal, then they'll both give out the secret. And if you look at human ethics, many cultures teach against this, but on a fundamental level, out of survival, it's very logical. So a big part of our society since Brezhnevinsky, I never spelled it.
So you just mentioned the prisoner dilemma, right? That's we just had a talk recently with a friend. He was trying to argue that giving the other person away, like giving the information away, it's not the most rational thing to do, and it seems to be very difficult to defend that view. I mean, depends on
what was his reasoning for not giving away data and information? Why shouldn't intellectual property be ubiquitous?
Yeah, like the idea here is that if you wanna, like, if you're like, okay, so the original prisoner dilemma is that you are both captured. If you're both silent, you both get 1 year or something like that. But if you give the other guy away, you get nothing, but he gets like 7 years, and vice versa. So obviously, from a quote rational standpoint, and you define it rational as minimizing the years, the time you spent in prison, then of course it should be the most rational thing to do, to just give the information away, because if you give it away, you either spend 0 years or free in this situation. Like there was that option that both give the information away, so they're co-criminals, so they spend a part of the sentence, like 3 or 5 years, I don't know. But yeah, like still, like your average time spent in the jail is always lower if you give the information away, right? But his reasoning was like, what about the other guy? Like, what if he decides that it's like, his reasoning was that if I conclude that it's the most reasonable thing for me to do to give the information away, then certainly it's going to be the most rational idea for the other person to give that information away. Ergo, I'm going to spend more time in prison because we're both gonna give the information away. But if I come to the conclusion that it's the most rational decision to not give the information away, that certainly the other person should also come to the most rational conclusion that it's, not worth it to go give the information away, and we will both spend, or I will spend less time in prison. But that kind of argument, that's so weird. Like you kind of that's almost Kantian in the sense that you just think that well, there's one necessary rational conclusion to an argument that every rational human being will just be guided towards, like a Kantian maxims or categorical imperatives. But it seems that what you what you believe is the most rational thing to do, that won't have any consequences on what other people will believe that is the most rational thing to do.
And it's kind of interesting in this. In what are some circumstances, obviously, where this works and doesn't work? So in one situation, it works because in America, for instance, or maybe in the post-Soviet Union, you have capitalism and anarcho-capitalism, which has driven a certain sort of scarcity-based economy into a growth-based economy, and so people are being cut off at the bottom and people are being lifted to the top. In that, you have people that are short-sighted because they see the bottom line as soon as possible, and so you create a group of people which are divorced from their cultures because they've moved to new lands, or their nations have been taken and put into a Soviet Union. They've lost their states. In America, it's the same thing. California and Washington used to be, Texas was a country. So at a certain point, you get a loss of interest in anything other than oneself, and you can fabricate a kind of person who will rationalize that no one can be trusted because they can't be trusted. And then what's a circumstance where this doesn't work? Anytime you try have you seen The Gods Must Be Crazy? Like, try doing this on a Bushman in Africa. Like, it wouldn't work, right? Because in a circumstance where they don't even have the Lacanian linguistics to understand right and wrong or good and evil, right? Because like in Sans, like, a snake isn't evil, it's just pointy at one end, right? Like, so there's always going to be a confusion about this idea. They're not the most obvious rational thing to someone who's like lived in that system. And again, that's also like it's a capitalistic socialist system to live in ancient Africa, because you are in a community where there's no hierarchy because everyone kind of needs the jobs that they do to get done, or else no one can eat because there's very little water. So someone has to collect water from all these gourds. Someone else has to go get food, and like someone has to prepare it. And if they don't all do that, it doesn't really matter who thinks they're more valuable. So in a weird way, it's capitalism with a completely, as Howard Zinn, and I'm sorry for bringing him up, but like said, like it's like the Arawak Indians are kind of a horizontal, free liberal socialist economy. And like all of the modern industrialization terms come from that thing. Yet when we look at it, our idea is we should betray each other. And the other idea is, of course you would never betray your brethren. Of course you would never betray your comrade. Of course you would never betray your state or your sister. You would never betray. Like, you would self-sacrifice. And this is the ideology that we're constantly taught. In America, you should die for your country. In the Soviet Union, you should, never step back or stop moving. You should always advance forwards and pick up your fallen comrades' guns and keep advancing the cause. Like, there's very little escape, and it seems like a plateau on this idea of like, do we become selfless ever? And does that completely just nullify this argument?
I mean, would you say that in Soviet Russia, the people would be less, or let's say more prone to give the information away because the different ideology that is
I think
the
the Soviet Union is weirdly similar to the United States. Let me show you this. You've seen Starship Troopers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a video from the Soviet Union. And I'll turn down the sound because we don't need to hear it. But if you can see this This is a video about American imperialists have sent potato beetles by cloud and air to our republic. And they're saying that the American children who sent letters from the schools in order to make, friendships and alliances during the 40s were actually sending those blights and bugs. And so in a lot of ways, this is really similar to stuff that America gets in terms of propaganda. That the Chinese are putting lead in their toys on purpose because they hate them, when really we're telling them to do it. Like the Americans build a factory in China in the 80s and they use lead toys. It's because American companies wanted it to happen. So it becomes this thing where it's like everyone's actually kind of trying to do their job as well as they can so their families aren't taken from them, or that they're not taken from their families, one way or the other, in America or Russia. And also Russia is very different than it was in the Soviet Union. I think you still have more freedoms than we've ever had before, but like similarly, we've started to gain this idea that we have to be in it for ourselves, right? I mean, isn't that the biggest difference between Taiwan and, the PRC, is that the Chinese of Taiwan, they have a lot of charities on the streets. You can see like dog charities and everything, but there's very little charity in the Soviet PRC, because the new Maoist China, like they take so much that everyone's trying to see the bottom line and they're out for themselves as much as possible. And it might be because sociology shows it's way easier to control people that are selfish. If you have a religious conviction that might be broken, then you're less reliable to follow your conviction or to not follow your conviction than somebody whom tries to just do, like, get the carrot and not get hit by the stick. It's the stick and the carrot. If you want to get hit by the stick, we already know where you're going to go. If you're a masochist, we got you. If you want a carrot, we know where you're going to go. So they can lead and maneuver people through choice. It's consent and choice-based control. And it's easiest to control people when they have a completely liberal, consumerist ideology that says you just want whatever you want, you should have it, because then you'll do anything to advance that instead of trying to advance some sort of social goal, which I thought kind of was your idea with the race car. It's like, because he's really ideologically, he's like, well, yeah, I mean, I see that this is a value. You could save people, but they're just fly babies in Africa, and look at how nice this car is. It's like, for him, his like, but the other ideologies is equivalent, if not slightly preferable. So that requires us to train people to do that, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring up. Brezhnevinsky, he's been kind of interesting. His daughter claimed that Biden accosted her recently, which was interesting. But he was a Soviet, anti-Soviet, and he also seems to have kind of built the United States into a Soviet Union. And he said a couple interesting things, like, shortly the public will be unable to reason or think for themselves. They'll only be able to parrot information that's been given the previous night's news. And in a lot of ways, it sounds like he's rather for this. There's a number of cases where he said it's easier to murder a million people or millions of people than it is to control people. And so learning how to control people in the technotronic era will require more Panopticon. So I think that's also, like, when we look at the trolley problem, also it's the same thing. When you have a trolley problem, you have to, immediately, the first thing you should wonder is, who is the operator of the trolley? Is he a narcissist? Is he an egoist? Is he a sadist? Does he believe in justified suffering? Maybe he's Catholic, right? Maybe he's a Calvinist. Maybe a Calvinist thinks all these men have to die for Jesus. I don't know. I mean, like, there's a number of circumstances where the ideal of the trolley solver is really, we try to reserve it for the right kind of mind, because some people, like, if this was Pol Pot would smash the trolley. Actually, I kind of want to pull up that meme. I think that one's funny. I don't think anyone got that.
Okay.
Did you see the Pol Pot meme?
Also, no, let's see.
You keep
also,
talking
like,
while
if it's
I find
a
it.
negative utilitarianist, right? Then you could be like, yeah, I mean, life is suffering. Why not? There's 5 people. I could reduce a lot of suffering with not pulling the lever. That's 5 less people suffering on this earth. I'm closer to my goal of reducing suffering to a 0. I mean, it's easier to define suffering than pleasure. It's an evil that is quite straightforward. Let's you know let's drop a nuke or something.
Yeah, I don't
So
think a
we
lot of people
that-
liked my Pol Pot meme, but this was the idea. You've got a trolley problem, and it's being solved by Pol Pot. And he says, I did not solve the trolley problem to kill people, to kill the nation. Look at me now. Am I a savage person? My conscience is clear. And he's destroying the trolley. And that's a big part of Maoism, and even Lao Tzu had said that we're creating problems instead of creating solutions, and that looking back at how the Bushmen of Africa and how the ancient villagers of Cambodia and of China used to live their lives before technology, they may have been better off. And so there's this period of cancel cultural revolution where they start smashing all of the trolleys for the sake, and this is what happened in Cambodia, where Pol Pot took millions of people and put them through detainment programs, and the West shows it as a Holocaust, and the East, the Soviets and the socialist side of the world, the second world, shows it more that they took people out of cities who had Vespas and radios, and then they forced them into farms, and they didn't know how to work in these social gulags, and most of them died, but 1 million of them lived. But they looked, pretty barren when they got out. There's like a photo of like before and after shots of being through the Pol Pot thing, and it's not nice. But for the people, it seems like ideologically the idea should be that we destroy the problem entirely. I mean, and yet there's a problem with that, because then we don't get to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean that sounds to be quite hard to justify, even if you do like just make people change their way of lives. If you haven't taken in account that they're a bit, it's a bit hard to adapt and people's gonna die. Oh, that's I don't see how they are justifying that, anyone really. But well, is the operator of the trolley called a troll? Well, I haven't, in 4 years of trolley problem memes, haven't come across this one yet. So
it's getting pretty weird out there at the trolley memes, man. I think we're starting to find there's some weird synchronicity. I definitely started to notice. Maybe we should peruse some of the memes. Are there any memes that you have got that you wanted to show specifically?
No, not really. Just go ahead. Let's see what we have.
Okay. This one, I like this one. You think you want something because you've been conditioned to want it. Lytle. I don't think Americans are going to get this meme. This is about. Yeah. This is the new Adidas. Everyone knows in Europe that Lytle is cool. I'll just leave it at that.
I mean, I wasn't sure, but okay.
Lytle is a supermarket. Don't you have a Lytle's?
Yeah, of course. But I'm a Hofer. I'm an Aldi gang.
Adel owns Lytle, but okay, whatever. So they've got.
I mean, that's.
It's the Kmart.
Do I care? I'm a stupid consumer.
It's basically Kmart. Okay, this is a Kmart commercial. It's like saying you don't really want the nicest thing. You've been conditioned to want the designer thing. I think that's kind of funny. This is from that show, The Good Place. I don't know if
haven't watched it yet.
I don't know if enough people have seen it yet to get this, but this guy's the bad guy, and he makes the bad version of the afterlife. Basically, they have a very Egyptian afterlife. It's a worthwhile show to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this was funny.
Cover a lot of ethics, right?
Yeah, they have trolley problems. They do an entire episode at least on trolley problems. The irony of the Ayn Rand and then they get upset at the guy who shows them trolley problems because they thought that they knew how to be right and wrong until they saw trolley problems. And they're like, you're just doing this to be mean because you don't believe in right and wrong, do you? And he's like, I mean, I've seen every possible trolley problem. It's tainted me. Like it's pretty good.
I mean, that's just like being an admin of trolley problem means for 4 years. So.
Right, I felt like you should sue them for your likeness, I say.
Yeah. Am I in this show? Are you parodying me?
Let's go a little bit further. Oh, this one's kind of reasonable. How philosophy works: you think things, you find out you're wrong, so you think some
Definitely.
things.
I mean, as soon as you go around telling everyone that you're done with your philosophical system, I mean, that's some foolish moment right there. Some weak little brain time. That's not done. It was always a lie. There's no cake at the end. Jesus.
Yeah, I like the Mickey Mouse being prayed to by rodents. I don't quite get it, but it's genius, Darren. So thank you for posting. That's nice. I kind of think my first thought obviously is they're praying to this likeness of themselves that's Disneyfied and it's not accurate. I think that's maybe they're saying that there was no Mickey Mouse.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an a group of beings worshipping a symbolical new being, right? That has emerged to the boundaries of their biological self.
How about Kanye West running for president? The truth is insane.
I mean, that's a captivating image.
Well, he's done some
insane.
He's done some weird things recently, right? Like this is a picture you can see the Chinese propaganda poster underneath it. I assume it is, but it's just a communist propaganda poster, and he's been put on top of a man, like a Chinese revolutionary with his hat, and someone instead of holding up I assume Mao's little red book, they're holding up Kanye's little, album that had no picture on it. It was very anti-commodity or anti-capitalist looking. I don't know. It was just like a burned CD, right? And he sells a white T-shirt, and he's got some kind. So I wonder a lot about what his real deal is because he seems to be not. I mean, he's at least. I mean, it's very easy to be brilliantly insane. You can think. I think Nikola Tesla said you can think deeply and be incredibly insane. It's more important. It's important to be able to think clearly. But at this, I also wonder, like, what is his plan? And if Kanye is seriously running, I mean, that'd be something.
He's more of an artist, making a statement with everything he does, right? Trying to stir things up, have a little statement with everything he does. So.
This one also, you got Mark Zuckerberg holding the phalangist symbol that the Facebook cane comes from, and he's like he's censoring art or beauty or life or experience or reality. I mean,
interesting. Can you put a nude woman but painted as a classical art? Like, can you put that on Facebook and not being blocked?
Yeah. Happened? I mean, if somebody gets really upset, but recently they've said you're allowed to put breasts on Facebook, I think. But I don't think they allow it in certain parts of the world is the thing. But, this one was good. I like this one. So it doesn't have to be this way. There was another one that was funnier. I hope I can find where there was just a lobster having a dream. But there's a kind of a joke, which is that, his name is Jordan Peterson, and he thinks that humans are a lot like lobsters. And, we have similarly like certain hormonal chemicals, but we also have a very different, we also have cannibals. I guess, maybe he's right. Maybe we are a lot like lobsters. I don't know.
But it's also about that lobsters live in a hierarchical structure, right?
Right.
So that it's not really a purely social thing to have a hierarchy. But
they're saying that socially, that every time they make a major, they triumph, then they extend their spine a bit and they grow from the hormones. So the more happy and more successful they've been, the larger they are, and then it's really easy to see a successful lobster, because So in other words, there's 300 million years of evolution showing, or at least of existence showing, according to science, using their own metrics, that humans didn't just rapidly develop this system of gain-based non-equity. The non-equity actually is a pretty logical conclusion to biology. That I think is his main argument.
Yeah, right. Although not many people disputed that, I think.
Right. I think the things
A
that
bit.
they disputed were more like that we have urine in our blood and that but a lot of people are hard-shelled and But here's Skeletor. Each day I seek a deeper understanding of my purpose and the lives I touch. There's been a kind of a trend of Skeletor memes. John
Yeah,
Curtis
what's up with that?
I think it's because Skeletor says, I'll get you, He-Man, and so instead it's funny for him to be like really passionate about something that's positive.
Right. I see.
Because he's super passionate about He-Man, which is a little weird, really. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
But like if he'd been like, you can't get He-Man, like to everybody, because he's like, I've tried everything against He-Man. Like it's But when he's like, your thoughts, your dreams matter, your life matters, you matter. Like, I think that's the thing. It feels right. It feels right now.
It does.
Plus, I think it's also because there's that He-Man song where He-Man sings "What's Up" by Four Non-Blondes.
Yeah, right.
Let's go through a little further. Oh, this one was funny, I thought too. And some of these are just reposts because we find them in the philosopher memes, and some of them are too edgy for philosopher memes or something. He stole the surplus value of my labor and then just effing took off with it. Right? I mean, that's pretty real.
Yeah. Not a crime, though.
Black's Law Dictionary matters. Capitalism is inevitably the conclusion is global corporate monopoly. Fascists want to help it transition and maintain the power of the wealthy class. Socialists want to intervene and use centralization to liberate the working class, bruh. Not exactly philosophical, except for as an analysis on dudes.
Yeah, right.
The early 1800s doomer.
Oh.
Life swings like a pendulum backwards and forwards between pain and boredom. To live alone is the fate of all great souls. To marry means to half one's rights and double one's duties. The brain may be regarded as a kind of parasite. This guy sounds like Kierkegaard. We forfeit 3/4 of our freedom to be like other people. Man, that guy's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's
Schopenhauer for you.
Right. When you wake up in the morning and you shall meet with a busybody, the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful, envious, unsocial, but then you remember these things can happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil.
Whoa.
Okay.
What?
Yeah. Sometimes, man. Sometimes. This is positive. So instead of using non-Socratic language, you stop using anti-Socratic language. So you're so obviously wrong about this. You could say, that's an interesting point. Can I ask you a few questions? Because if they're so obviously wrong, then they'll just defeat themselves by expanding upon their wrong argument. And otherwise, you'll find out that you were wrong about thinking they were wrong. You're an idiot.
I mean, that's not really a meme. That's just a practical guide that actually works. I mean,
yeah, it's true. Still, though, I mean, it's like it's pretty nice in a group. Like when it's kind of like the posters by surfing, where they're like, "Don't beat each other up with your surfboards." So, like
Serbia. What?
Where was the Serbia one?
Yeah, I don't know. It just popped up from a Wikipedia article.
Oh, there you go. Oh yeah,
Well,
there was a whole thing on maps that happened. So they were talking about age of consent laws. I guess we could go into that. It's kind of weird, but it's like worth mentioning. So the age of consent around the world is, varied. There's an age of consent anywhere from 12 and actually places where there is no law, still, and then all the way up to 2021, although it's been voided recently. So the age of consent has clearly been shrinking. Also, it's expanding. 16, 14 in Europe, I think, where in Germany and France, and I don't know what was Slovenia, but a lot of these places is 14, 15. United States, you look at the United States, it's clearly not one age. A lot of people think it's 18 the entire United States. Well, no, only in California and a few of the states. So this became a question about age of consent and when and how do we define age of consent and minor attracted persons, and when we just decide someone's an adult. The Israelis consider 13 years old to be bar mitzvah age, and Germany 14. I mean, it's like
that's probably more than the age, right? It's probably not just a barrier, but probably has a lot to do with circumstances and the cognitive ability, like how developed both of the persons involved in it were. So I think that talking about age, that's shouldn't be I mean, seems to be a bit besides the point, maybe, because each individual case is going to be, I mean, if there's any situation in which one of the persons is much more developed than the other, and that could lead to abuse and stuff like that, I mean, then it's problematic. So, yeah, I mean, probably if there's like a 30-year-old dude with a very, very low, I don't know. No, I would have to think about it, actually.
Yeah, it's a complicated one because it's like it becomes non-democratic when you say, well, it's not up for discussion. The age should be this age, and then it becomes, well, why should anyone have a say? Because it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with the actual person. But then you have to deal with exploitation. And so exploitation has become really important, and we're dealing with so many human trafficking issues around the world. Immediately, specifically, is the greatest war on human trafficking probably that's ever been had. So it becomes a question because you're like, well, in this country, 14s, where are they going to draw the line, and so that becomes another,
even if you put it at 18, I mean, can 18-year-olds not be exploited and abused and everything? I mean, it's right. I think like that should be the main point of the debate, the whole barrier, but rather, what kind of behavior, what kind of actions could be considered a action that should be criminally punished.
Right. I like this one. You wouldn't download an ideology.
Okay.
Remember to donate. And then, ideology did nothing wrong. Also very edgy. It's fun. Fun stuff.
Okay, I'm still thinking about the donut one. What? You wouldn't donut a ideology. What's the point?
Well, it's kind of, I think it's a joke on capitalism, because it's the idea like capitalism has made these commercials that say you wouldn't download a car, was the reference to if you wouldn't download a movie, because people are downloading movies and songs and things, and which is just free information essentially at that point, because you're just, like this video, you're downloading a video right now. And in this video, there's opinions and ideologies, because you can't really, you can't avoid it. It's kind of like a bias, So in this sense, it's the irony is you would download an ideology, because if you're the kind of person who downloads music on Napster or whatever, you're the kind of person that might read a book for free on the internet. I think that's kind of the joke.
All right. I mean, I would also download a car if I could. I mean, get that shit right here.
Yeah, I would totally download a car. Exactly. Like I've seen people
I would pirate the shit out of them. I would just have 10 Lamborghinis in my garage.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
You should. Why don't you 3D printing Lambos? I mean, that could be like that's the thing to do. I've seen Chinese people have, what is that called? Oh man, Chinese cheap knockoff art, Lamborghini. I can't spell Lamborghini, by the way, because like that's how poor
Lamborghini. No parola italiana.
Sorry, bro. I just that's how distant I am from the car. Like I don't see it. I don't see it enough to know how to spell it. But like this guy, he does this. There's a thing where you in China you make your own, of something. So he made himself a cheapo with a Toyota clone engine, fake Lamborghini. It's a little different, but it's still really rad. And a lot of people, do even better. I mean, handmade stuff in China is huge. People there's a dude who made his own helicopter also I saw, which is pretty sweet. So, I mean, you can do amazing. You could download an ideology. You could download a car. That's totally fine.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Maybe we should check some of these comments. Oh my gosh, there's lots of comments here. Okay. Is this a rerun? Seth Smith asks live on the questionnaire. No, Seth, this is not a rerun. You are here now. Welcome, Seth. How are you? And then he says, is this the one where Zach Morris breaks up with Kelly? Yes, that is the plot twist of this episode. Okay. Utopian Project, Watery Hole, Trolley Driver, Trolliver, the Trolley Driver. That's who's in charge. Money, Euro. The Snitch. Which is the snitch? You mean like in Harry Potter, or do you mean the guy who snitches on the... Yeah, we were talking about that, the snitch. It makes sense. Or not to snitch, yes. And then you download an ideology if you're possessed. I think it's a reference to being possessed by Zeus with the state as reference. The face of the shirt looks like the mantra of the TV series Lex. Interesting. Possessed is an interesting term. I think Jung would use the word possessed because being fervently possessed by these shadows interests.
I mean, ideas have people, right?
Yeah, ideas have people, exactly. So that makes a certain amount of reasonable sense. Do you think that that's is that how much control do ideas have over people?
I mean, how much control do people have over themselves? That's,
probably less than ideas, in my opinion.
Yeah, right. I'm just looking into ways how connected this is to the idea of free will. Right. I mean, yeah, ideas have... I mean, I think that I'm struggling to come up with a answer right now. I certainly haven't thought about this enough. I mean, I have thought about free will a lot. So,
Well, it's a complicated one because it gets into like Chomsky and Lacan and that idea of like language in your ideas, like or how much of an idea is a symbol of an experience versus an experience.
I mean, also like how much, like as we are living in a certain zeitgeist, right? In a certain ideological.
We are living in an ideological world.
It's all around us. And like, right, like how can you escape that? Even like, are you not completely determined by the, partly by the biology, partly, genetics and stuff, partly by your random circumstances, and the rest is just ideology? I mean, what else? There's no picture. I mean, the picture, free will, I don't know, some entity that goes beyond that rarely comes into the picture, I think. In debates, I have certainly not come across a lot of people that would, well, have the free will is a space for free will reserved, amongst those forces. I mean, yeah, like we are completely, like, even if you just want to follow the most rational things, the most rational ideas, arguments, and you want to follow like reason to guide you to some ideas, the right things to do. I mean, even that, you're completely limited to pool of arguments that are available at a given time in history, at a given time in your life. I mean, if you're gonna be born in ancient Greek, I mean, you can follow reason all you want, but your ideas about the world and about what's right to do will, likely be quite different from what they are right now.
That's
So
been a big
I don't know,
question.
like how.
The Tartarian
Yeah.
thing, because somebody just asked earlier, Brandon Villasenor asked, I wonder what it would be like with the Tartarian ideology, essentially. And that's an interesting question, because looking at like the Slavic, Aryan, Sanskrit connection, the way Sanskrit probably predates Greek, and a lot of the time for a long time they try to pretend that Greek that Sanskrit was a derivative of Greek, and they're like, no, we can prove that that's not true, and that the Finnish languages are Uralic languages. There's a thing called the Bach Saga, and the Bach Saga shows kind of these very much like the Mayan letters. They're like partially symbolic hieroglyphic and partially phonetic. So they have sounds and they have symbols mixed together, and they can represent numbers too, and they can represent a house. They can be used in different ways, and it's the way the old Slavic glagolithic writing was originally used, which the glagolithic is kind of it's like the Slavic. Cyril, I think Saint Cyril had perfected it or something. But when we look at these words, I saw this is an example I saved on that kind of topic. This is Trotsky, and Trotsky's, I like Trotsky, but he's got, he said some racist things in his time. Like, he did say that the reason why Stalin shouldn't, and there's a lot of better reasons than this, to be against Stalin. But he chose like that was Stalin was too Asian, like he looks too Asian, and like that means he shouldn't really. He's wrote about it, and it was like I don't know, it kind of broke my heart. I was like, bro, come on, like of all things you could have said, like, but because the Georgians of the Caucasus are, there are a lot of things, but I'm trying to get to.
Once you look into philosophers, everyone has a blind spot, a nasty spot. So
that's really huge. That's huge. You can not just dismiss everyone just because they're not perfect. If you do that, you will literally be in an echo chamber of yourself until you realize that you're either perfect because you're a narcissist or you have flaws yourself. But like,
just look into any philosopher a bit more closely, and eventually you will run into some pretty, dumb shit.
Yeah. You can be incredibly profound and be incredibly crazy and stupid sometimes. And then also that should open you up, because then you're able to look at weird things. If you want to look at Jordan Peterson and Ayn Rand, you can use the same mentality. Everyone's like, oh, well, they're really stupid. It's like, well, yeah, but, are you going to not read them because of the fact of that fact? Because if you were to use that fact, you would probably not want to read anybody, because everybody makes crazy decisions. But okay, so this was kind of an interesting one, which is that Leon Trotsky's 1930s work, The History of the Russian Revolution, he uses the word Rostov, and that is the beginning of where racism comes from. Sorry, my Cyrillic is silly, but the work here is the first.
I didn't even know how to read it, so
it's not that hard if you think about it. It's very much Greek, and so you've got and you've seen some of the letters in your math class, but the first three R is the P, then you got the S, which is the C, which is why the CCP is the SSR, and then you got the E sound, and then S again, and then it just starts over Tov, and so Rasistov. So the Rasistov, this work has been translated to, and this is where the word racist comes from. And again, we're talking about Lacanian ideology. If we were to use words to describe things, we would use different words. We would probably have more or less confusion about that term, or different kinds of confusions. But so Trotsky said in this passage, and translated into English, Slavophilism, like the Slavophile, to be to prefer to have camaraderie amongst the Slavs, the messianism of backwardness, has based its philosophy upon the assumption that the Russian people and their church are democratic through and through. whereas official Russia is a German bureaucracy imposed upon them by Peter the Great. Mark remarked upon this theme in the same way that Teutonic jackasses blamed the despotism of Frederick II upon the French, as though backward slaves were not always in need of civilized slaves to train them. This brief comment completely finishes off not only the old philosophy of the Slavophiles, but also the latest revelations of the racists. The Slavophiles, which Trotsky alluded to, were a historical group of traditional Slavs who valued greatly their native culture and their way of life and wanted to protect it. So Trotsky was referring, on the other hand, he saw them as, and others with the same intentions, like them as an impediment to his internationalist communist plans for the world. And so he didn't really care about the Slavic quality of the Russians. He thought that the Slavophile was a crime of loving their own people against loving the other races. And so here's where the term racism comes from. And it's interesting because we're using this word that really doesn't cry for, the Slavs weren't like the Nazis. They just wanted to have a certain Yugoslavic values, a pan-Slavism was that they could work together. And even in their symbol, you had the Austro-Hungarian Empire had a bird on one side and the other side for the head. They wanted to have a third symbol with the bird staring straight ahead. And it would have been the Austro-Slavonian Hungaric Empire, and it would have included, I think, Prague would have been the capital of the Slavonic part of it. So I mean, it's interesting because they've changed this term now to mean xenophobic, ethnocentric, supremacist, all of these things. But those are not an initial intention of Trotsky with the word. So I guess, I don't know, it's a thought on populist.
I mean that's just the natural evolution of language, right? I mean, you're gonna start out with one meaning, and then like that's like when a modern physicist like Thomas Kuhn, he tried to read Aristotle's work on physics. He just went through it, and he was like, wow, okay, so Aristotle is a profound idiot. What the fuck is he even talking about? What the fuck is this shit? And then he kept reading it, and after really paying attention to how he uses the words and stuff, he figured out, wow, this words about nature that he's using in his work, they mean something completely else than I, a modern physicist, have thought them to mean. Of course, I thought he's an idiot. His words, they're completely devoid of what a modern physicist would impose on them. So yeah, I mean, in that way, that's why hermeneutics is important, right? Even when you really go read Trotsky, you have to know about his life, about his culture, or else you will think that he's like accusing his Slavophiles of xenophobism and some Slavic supremacists or whatever. Yeah, but yeah, that is interesting. I was not aware that Trotsky was that this was the first text in which we came upon this word. I never really asked myself where it comes from, but yeah, that's interesting. And of course, as soon as you're gonna have a word like racism, sexism, speciesism, that's a words that are very, very full of some ideological force. Of course, I mean, they are judging some kind of other ideology with the highest degree of fault, let's say. So that's very interesting. Now it made me wonder where the word sexism came from, and I know where speciesism came from, but yeah.
What about speciesism? Do you want to? We're pretty much at the end of the hour, but if you wanted to tell us a bit, if you speciesism is an interesting thing. Do you recall that story?
Yeah, I think it was coined by Peter Singer, and he's a circle of animal activists in order to have a word out there to describe that sort of attitude that general population has towards animals, where they do not have a ethically universal standard by which they judge the moral status of a being, right? But they have a totally species based base border. Yeah, I mean he's a member of Homo sapiens. Okay, we should respect him. He's a member of some other species. Well, I mean he's less. Fuck him. But yeah, they were like, yeah, obviously some. I mean, you could say, yeah, but the Homo sapiens are more rational than other species. I mean, not all of them. I mean, not all individuals are more rational than the beings from other species. I mean, you can. I mean, some people are like you wouldn't give like then there's some very interesting discussions about, for example, there was a nurse in some hospital in England, and she had intercourse with a mentally challenged patient of hers, and she fell in love with him. But the family of that patient was like, "Wow, wait, did you just rape our did you just rape him? Because he couldn't give consent, therefore you have breached that consent, you have raped him." But then people came in and they were like, yeah, but why are you giving him this right of consent if he is incapable of giving consent? Like, why are you supposing that he should have a say in whether he will have intercourse or not if he doesn't have the capacity to even cognize what that is and what implications it has on his life? Therefore, yeah, you shouldn't just give uh, individual beings rights in regards to a group that they belong to, but their specific particular attributes, which is, yeah, just the same as with racism and sexism. You shouldn't just because somebody is right in a different sex of a different race, then you would define their rights and worth in regards to being a part of that group. But no, it's about the individual. It's about his attribute. So that's a very interesting word. I think that before I heard of it, I kind of failed to really think about that topic. I mean, sometimes when you get new terminology, it really makes it easier to think about some problems. And speciesism, I found it to be a very fruitful concept. Although I'm not, yeah, it's a fruitful concept. Even if you disagree with Singer, I still find it to be yeah, fruitful.
Yeah, I like the expansion of these terms. We started going into Gaia theory, and so a lot of people have become like milieuists to believe in this sort of milieu. That's this thing that you exist in a habitat.
Milieu?
Milieu is like the French word for like an ecosystem. Essentially,
Mm-hmm.
it's the shared part of the if you've got two circles and there's that shared part. That part's the milieu. And
Okay.
so it's where like the watering hole, you have a number of species that live at the watering hole, but none of them are just all of the species. It's just the ones that are at the watering hole. So it's the milieu of the watering hole. It's the ecosystem. It's that whatever functions and exists in that place. So humans can be a part of it. The property itself has to be a part of it, and then the different species also have to be part of it. And then it starts elevating the status of migration patterns and whatever else is happening, because it's like, well, we need the bees to exploit the trees. We need the trees to exploit the bees. And then it becomes this thing of positive reciprocity, right? Because there's negative reciprocity, which is where somebody doesn't get a good deal out of the deal. So one partner is screwed. There's neutral reciprocity where he doesn't really get screwed, but he doesn't really benefit from it. And then there's positive reciprocity where both parties gain capital benefits, capitalize on the benefit of trade. So positive reciprocity can be, achieved through recognizing the best way for everything to be able to exploit, like utilitarianism. It's greater pursuit of happiness. So you have maggots on the ground, but you wait a few days so that the chickens can eat them, and like the whole system becomes like a naturally self-sustaining biocapitalist. I don't know, because we talked about bio-Leninism, so it's like biocapitalism. I don't know. I made that one up. I admit it.
That's a heavy one, though. Sounds it could be a fruitful concept.
I wouldn't want to put it in a book yet. I don't know. We'd have to test it first.
Yeah.
Well, it's been about an hour, man. I think that we hit a pretty good one. That was a good set. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Hey,
let's set up.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks again. Let's get you coming back on the next one. I think we'll have a thought experiment. We didn't quite fully thought experiment, but now I think I know where we can go with this race, class, and gender ism and is. Yeah, now I think I know where we're at. Cool, dude.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for watching. Peace.
Yeah. Join our group.
Yeah. Oh gosh, right. So that's important. I almost clicked on. So you go to his page. What's the link for it? I should put the banner up for that.
The trolley problem?
Yeah. Well, okay. I could put first off.
Well, I just meant the advanced philosophy memes group.
Yeah. Okay, so there's trolley problem page, and then there's the advanced philosophy memes group. We already have that button. I'll put that up in the meantime. So you can go check out that, and you know where to go to the Discord, and you can find more information on that. And then at some point, come to the trolley problems page and check out the trolley problems, because you saw that at the beginning of the video, and it's pretty funny. So, all right, thanks a lot.
Okay, peace.